A lot of sports last night. Of course, the Chiefs were able to take care of the Commanders, even, and the Bruins were on, but didn't. At least when I stayed awake, weren't looking too good in Ottawa. Hey Alexa, hey Google, play the Pulse of an H. J Dog on the boards. Jack Heath on a very nice looking Tuesday. J Dog, not so much on Thursday. I guess going to get a little wet on the rainy side. Nothing like we're watching in Jamaica, but a little bit of rain. And our poll question up on X, we take a little bit of a break this morning, has to do with Halloween at the end of the week. Some communities are talking about moving Halloween because of rain. We're not talking like 5 inches of rain here, but I guess rain doesn't mix with the costumes and the trick or treaters. I understand it's not as ideal, and you want safety out there, and people are out there with the lights, and maybe it's a little at dusk, a little more precarious. But do you think Halloween should stay on Friday night? Halloween, we're just asking the question up on X at the Pulse of an H. Have some fun this morning. J Dog will give us the results from yesterday's poll question. President Trump in Japan talking more deals. I was thinking this morning, we'll get back to this in a moment. I was thinking this morning we'll be on to South Korea, maybe even North Korea, who knows? And behind the scene talks with China. The markets were way up yesterday as we go into day 28 of the government shutdown, but the markets are ignoring that. So is the president in Japan. When's the last time? Just think about this wrong. When did anyone remember? Because I don't. I'm being very candid. I don't remember a time when a sitting president of an administration of the United States was involved in so many talking to other countries about spending more, buying more, doing more business with America. Can anyone out there, even the No Kings protest organizers, can anyone out there tell me a time when a sitting American president or an administration was involved in so many deals with other countries to spend more and buy more from the United States of America? Can anyone tell me a time? Certainly not the last 4 years. I don't think we know who were the kings in the administration the last 4 years. But what about previous presidents? President Obama, G.W. Bush. I can't remember a time. I really can't remember a time when a president was involved in so much business dealing with other countries to buy more, make more, do more trade with us. But anyway, just some commentary. 603-228-2080. We're going to get the latest on the government shutdown and a couple of the stories that are, I think, interesting. Now the federal union. By the way, I had a clip earlier.
Democrats talking about shutdowns in the past, including sound of you.
Let's listen to this.
This is the type of thing you've said about shutdowns in the past. Let's listen.
Chuck Schumer.
What if I persuaded my caucus to say I'm going to shut the government down? I'm going to not pay our bills unless I get my way. It's a politics of idiocy, of confrontation, of paralysis. Shutting down government over a policy difference is self-defeating. We can never hold American workers hostage again. While the CR bill is very bad, the potential...
Shutting down government over policies is bad? That was Chuck Schumer then. Where are the national media outlets or local TV and media playing this stuff, talking about Schumer in the past? Shutting down the government over policy differences is never good government. We can't, to the Freedom Caucus, we can't shut down the government now. We'll talk about spending cut debates later. Do you realize, by the way, do you realize that one of the conditions that Democrats are insisting upon on this government shutdown deal in right now is to restore funding for public broadcasting? Can anyone tell me what the HE double hockey sticks restoring funding for public broadcasting has to do with paying the civilian contractors at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard or TSA agents, FAA, military? Anyone tell me what restoring public funding for broadcasting has to do with this, or asking for work requirements or volunteer requirements for Medicaid? Oh, Chuck Schumer, shutting down the government over policy differences and demands is never good government. Until now. Oh my goodness. And where are the questions of our New Hampshire, our esteemed U.S. senators, one outgoing Senator Shaheen not running again? Haven't heard much from Senator Hassan. Where are the questions? And by the way, Federal Union of Federal Workers is urging lawmakers to reopen the government cleanly with no demands. Just get it reopened again. 800,000. Anyone asking the New Hampshire delegation if they agree with the federal workers? I shared with you, talking over the weekend with one of the senior members of the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. He lives in Portsmouth. He's a great person. He's got a great team. He goes, they're getting a little bit peed off. He said his crew can't go a paycheck or two without getting paid and pay their mortgages and their rent and their grocery bills and their family stuff. It's getting old, he said. It's getting old. And he goes, every time these politicians run for re-election in Congress, they want to come over here and pat our backs at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard and talk about all the great work we do. But right now, we're not getting paid. Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal, quick check-in this morning on the government shutdown and more. Good morning, Michael. I do. Mm-hmm.
Democrats fight hard, but they're the reason why there will no benefits November 1st. The union members who are part of the air traffic controllers, they had more than 5,500 delays yesterday because of the shortage. And what the Democrats say, it doesn't matter. We are going to shut this government down. And the argument is that they don't want the shutdown to last. They're ready to move on, but their base is so, more in line with AOC and Bernie Sanders than it is with Chuck Schumer
Yeah.
and the moderates. So they can't. So they're captured by their base every day. They look more and more extreme to the average person who says, "Look, I'm not right or wrong about Obamacare. Just open the government."
But because of mainstream media, I don't know if they do look more extreme. They're getting a great cover. I mean, when's the last time we saw ABC News do an interview with the minority leader in the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, who's insisting they continue to vote no to reopen the government, and play the clip from him just a few years ago blasting Republicans? It's never good to shut the government down over policy demands. His quote, and ask him, why'd you say that then? And what are you saying now? And, you talk about extreme in the Democrat Party, Bernie, AOC, the Democrat, the soon-to-be new mayor of New York City. I was thinking this morning, Michael Graham, when I was coming in, I remember when I would, in television news days, interview Bernie Sanders from Vermont, the senator, when he was a independent but voting with Democrats, long time. I'd interview him in New Hampshire. He did well up here in the primary. And, you never would say the socialist senator from Vermont because it was a criticism in the media. In the media, we were apprehensive to use the word socialist in describing Bernie Sanders because it was such an insult. And today it's a badge of honor for Democrats. It's a badge of honor.
It's a euphemism for communists. You call them socialists because you don't want to be rude and be more accurate. Call them a communist. At least that's the way it is with Mondami. But back to your point about the press, how about that? I would be thrilled if one WMUR news report would simply point out that the only reason the government shut down is because Senator Shaheen and Senator Hassan and some others are participating in a filibuster. There's a majority vote in the Senate to pass the clean CR. They have 53 or 54 votes, but you have to have 60 votes for cloture to get that bill to the floor. And so they're using the filibuster to block. And that's the only reason the government. Now you can say, well, why won't Republicans cut a deal? But you're absolutely right. There's a million deals. There's always something else.
Yeah.
You can always say, I'm demanding X or Y, but you're making additional demands to simply open the government. All have to happen.
Well, how about this of a question? How about this? How about this a question of our U.S. senators? Do you want to see funding for public broadcasting restored before you reopen the government? Yes or no? Well, just let them answer that question. And if they say yes, you could say, what does restoring public funding broadcasting got to do with reopening the government?
That's a great point. Hey, there's also another interesting story that we're going to be covering later today. This moderate Democratic group, they call it the Welcome Project. They got data from 100,000 people, and they said, what do you think of Democrats? They're trying to fight back. They're trying to do. Remember before Bill Clinton was
Yeah.
elected, Democrats got really far left, and then Clinton showed up, and they
Yeah.
got more moderate. They started having they have a list they put out today, and it'll be at NH Journal.
All right.
The most unpopular Democratic policies, not surprisingly, abolish the police is number one, right? But a bunch of stuff that our Democrats in New Hampshire support, like health care for illegal immigrants and increased illegal immigration.
Oh, that's another interesting thing. How much money do the Democrats to reopen the government want to spend on folks who are here? All right, we got to run, Michael. Michael Graham, thank you. All right, there's a vote today. Brad Cards live in D.C. By the way, Contact Politics coming up. We'll have a new edition later on today. Paul Steinhauser of Fox News, our guest. Contact Politics at the Pulse of NH, talking about the midterms and the early presidential activity in terms of candidates on the Democrat side. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of NH. Back in a moment. All right, Brad Card, co-host of Contact Politics, while Paul Steinhauser on as a guest today for our week's edition, talking about the early presidential stuff already in 2028, as well as the midterms. Brad Card, you're watching this government shutdown closely. My understanding, a federal union now for federal workers, which typically a union used to be probably aligned with Democrats, saying just have a clean vote to reopen the government, none of these demands. I don't know about New Hampshire U.S. senators if they're going to agree with the union, but another vote today on reopening the government, and we kind of know the outcome, right? Yeah, but Brad, let's stop. Let's stop there. You've been clear on this. You said yesterday this is the Democrats, but Republicans are in charge. Most people, because of the media, they're not saying that Democrats also want to restore funding for public broadcasting. They're not painting the picture that this is Schumer's shutdown. Well, again, this is not how, Brad, at the opening of the show, I pulled up a clip from Chuck Schumer just, a few years back, and you used to say it as well. And I'm not saying you were wrong, because, shutting down the government cost a lot of money, and, people aren't getting paid that are doing their jobs. It's a mess. People get a little cantankerous, especially when you start seeing the ripples, even if you don't work for the federal government. But you used to say, you can't shut in the Freedom Caucus. You can't shut the government down. Now's not the time to debate spending cuts. Chuck Schumer, I played a clip this morning, clear as a bell. Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, saying, you cannot shut the federal government down over policy demands and policy differences. That is irresponsible and bad government. So clear as a bell, he says this over and over again. Where is ABC News doing an interview with Schumer today, playing that clip first, and then asking him why he wants to shut the government down over policy demands? Right. Right. But, Brad, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it till the politics are right. Yeah. All right. We'll catch you later with Paul Steinhauser, Brad Card Live on this. Thank you, Brad, Tuesday morning. We come back. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker, President Trump, deal making over in Japan, soon to be China, maybe in a meeting in South Korea, maybe even North Korea meeting with Kim Jong-un. Also, Bank of America, the institute. We're going to hear from one of their great leaders talking about consumers and spending, looking at all their customers. What is happening as we head into November? Back in a moment. All right, we are back. A busy, busy Tuesday morning. We were hoping to get a live report. Our own White House correspondent, John Decker, covering the president in Japan. Talk about deal making. The president talking even aboard one of our aircraft carriers to the troops about the deals. Japan stepping up, wanting to buy more, spend more with the United States of America. And that's even before we hear from the meeting in South Korea on China. And J-Dog, let me know if John Decker gets that. I think John Decker is calling in, and then we're going to hear from one of the all-stars at Bank of America Institute, Taylor Bowley is going to be joining us again, talking about the economy. And Taylor might want to hear as well live our own White House correspondent before we go to her. John Decker, thank you for checking in real quickly. Just the president's dealing, wheeling and dealing on these deals with Japan, and we haven't even gotten to the back channel stuff with China. John Decker, thank you for getting in early. Thank you, John Decker, our own White House correspondent. Big stuff. Markets liking that as the government shutdown continues. All right, Bank of America, one of our great partners and sponsors, switching gears completely, looking at the American economy, looking at consumers, looking at you, me, the person next to you, our confidence, what we're spending money on. Bank of America Institute, Taylor Bowley joining us again. Good morning, Taylor. Well, I really enjoy these segments. We've had Stephen Janot on and some of your colleagues on the economic side, but the Institute, let's start with refreshing our listeners on Bank of America Institute, because it's the data. I mean, you're talking more than 50 million consumers and business clients. Can you refresh us on the Institute, Taylor? It's almost to me like a university of just nonpartisan information on consumers and business clients. Taylor, we're getting to that point. Saturday, November 1st, we're almost through the year. How is the consumer doing? Wow. So Taylor, with Bank of America Institute, sounds like it's higher income consumers are sort of sustaining or holding up spending. What about in the business world, your small businesses, your business clients? Are small businesses not performing as well as bigger corporate counterparts? Mm.
service-based businesses, so things like restaurants, salons, your local contractor, hiring fell nearly 13%. So even though business applications and federal data is up, the number of new businesses planning to hire is down. And so that's also a bit of a red flag for future job creation. So are there challenges? Absolutely. There's some labor market softness, inflationary pressures, and uneven revenue growth are real concerns. But there's also some opportunities. Lending is up, and firms are continuing to invest, particularly in technology. And the easing of some credit and short payment activity suggests that small businesses are still finding ways to grow as we head into the new year.
Interesting. Taylor Bowley, Bank of America Institute. Taylor, what because we're not that far away, a couple months, hard to believe, to the new year, 2026. What are some of the key or some of the big themes that are top of mind with the Institute?
So over the course of the year, we've been monitoring this disconnect between really high economic uncertainty and how consumers and businesses are actually behaving. And despite the fact that small business uncertainty hit all-time highs, consumer sentiment is pretty low, historically speaking. People are still spending. Small businesses are still doing okay. So I think for me, what's going to be really interesting is to see if this dichotomy, this very interesting disconnect, is going to continue. Also, we've published a lot on AI over the year, and I think AI is just one of those buzzwords that everyone is talking about right now, and what it means for people's sales, the job market, and overall economic productivity is also something we will be continuing to monitor into the next year.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's there. The technology side seems to be where a lot of even small businesses are inevitably having to invest. But when we had Stephen Junot, one of your colleagues and one of your leading economists, on recently, he echoed a lot of this, what the Institute data from small business clients and consumers is showing, kind of a slowing in parts, but nothing that's going to really be what he would call a down economy. And then beginning of the new year, things picking up. Also, the Fed may continue, depending on what we see, to lower those rates for borrowing. But it's interesting, Taylor, what you see with the higher ending consumers kind of, sustaining a lot of the overall spending.
It is, and the extent to which we think that divergence is going to continue, I think will be something to watch for the holidays, because that's where a large chunk of spending occurs, right? So if we continue to see that weakness from lower income households in the holiday season, that is something that could be concerning for overall financial health. And to your point on potentially having lower rates, that could also impact the housing market, and maybe there's some home equity that could play a role. So there are a lot of different moving parts as we head into the new year that are still things that we at Bank of America Institute will be watching out for.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Taylor. Bank of America Institute. Now you send out, because I get the emails on a lot of the surveys or the outcomes, kind of the data. If people want to access, what's the best way?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm glad to hear that you're an active reader of our work. And again, this is not just for Bank of America clients, it is for anyone. And you can find these insights at institute.bankofamerica.com, and it's totally free. So I would encourage
Yep.
everyone to go check us out.
Thank you very much, Taylor. Very enlightening and timely, given where we're at going into the holidays. Thank you, Taylor.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you.
All right. How much hypocrisy is hovering around the politics of the government shutdown? 28 days. How much hypocrisy? Now, let me just cut to the chase on facts versus opinion. The facts are that, whether or not we want to admit it, 8 out of 10 of us don't have the time to fixate on the intricacies of what Chuck Schumer or Senator Thune or Speaker Johnson or Minority Leader Speaker Jeffries or, in the Senate, Schumer have to say about the shutdown, or our own politicians in the federal delegation. People are just busy. But if you're working for the federal government, it's not so insignificant to not being paid. This is getting old. And, obviously, if we didn't need the government to be funded, well, that's another debate. But when you look at certain things, it's starting to drag. But how much hypocrisy is there? You'd be surprised. And the other thing that I'm just going to cut to the chase on this one as well. The media, I'm talking, I guess, mainstream television news media, even locally, nationally. Maybe it's a reason why ratings and viewership is going down. People are busy. They just want stuff to get solved in our own life. We can't drag our feet and point fingers and be hypocritical if we have bills to pay. If you're a small business owner, you're kind of busy. You're kind of busy working, aren't you? Then you look at Congress. Oh my goodness, look at Congress. I don't know if both parties understand this. People look at Congress and they see dysfunction. They see finger pointing. They see a bunch of fat cats, whether it's accurate or not, that go in there saying one thing and stay in there at all costs and become something else. Most people look at Congress with lower approval ratings than, I don't know. It's got to be in the single digits. And this is only going to make it worse. How many times have you heard me say over the years, oh, another looming government shutdown? Every 6 months. Do you know after all this, 28 days of this BS and crap? It's not crap, though, if you're a civilian contractor and a welder at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard working on a nuclear sub. It's not crap if you're not getting paid. You think your tenant or your bank is going to give you a couple months off because you're not getting paid? I don't think it works that way. But I've said, do you know, even after these 28 days, even if they pass a clean bill, spending bill, it's only through another few weeks and we're back at this. Talk about a half blank, way to run a federal government. And that leads to distrust and cynicism, because people say, I can't run our state like this. We got to balance our budget for 2 years. I can't run my business like this. I can't run my family and my household like this. How come they get to run the federal government like this? And it's all politics. This is all politics. It started November 5th with the election. It's all politics. And members of Congress got elected. President Trump got elected. He beat Harris, and the Republicans passed this so-called big, beautiful, one big bill to keep the tax rates where they are, so we weren't seeing huge tax increases on middle class, to look at spending. And this whole thing is politics. The whole thing is politics. We'll come back with the hypocrisy meter next. Yeah, I was talking about the hypocrisy meter in this government shutdown, but something the national media won't do. I began the show this morning in some commentary, just actually wasn't commentary, it's fact. I don't know if you've heard of a United States Senator named Chuck Schumer. I think he's a little afraid of Representative Ocasio-Cortez taking him on in a primary. But, you know, the problem with this shutdown, and the politicians in office aren't thinking about this. Most people already look at Congress and they think it's a bunch of BS and crap. And they look at these politicians like Schumer that are in there for decades and all they care about is re-election. That's a fact. And they look at this and they're like, what a bunch of clowns. They can't even keep the government open. And then one side blames the other. Oh, you're in charge. And even though you want a clean vote, a lot of people don't even know what a CR is, by the way. What the hell's a CR? It's a continuing resolution. That's legislative gobbledygook for keep the government funded. Keep it open. And then you look at what Schumer, I played at the clip at the beginning of the show this morning. Chuck Schumer, clear as a bell. This is a couple of years ago when he was in the majority. Shutting down the government over policy demands and differences is irresponsible and awful. We can't do that. He was talking to the Freedom Caucus of Republicans that wanted spending cuts before they voted to reopen. Oh, you can't do that. Making policy demands is terrible. And now the same politician, because that's what he is, because he's threatened by the far socialist left of his own party. Last time he agreed to reopen the government. So now he's dug in. He's all dug in. He's a fighting Chuck. He's a fighting Chuck. He's a fighting ninja warrior out there. He's going to take on Trump and the Republicans come hell or high water, even though he used to say you can't shut the government down. Oh, yeah, that's what he's doing. And you know what? What about Senator Jeanne Shaheen? She's not running again. Coming up, we're going to have someone who's running for the U.S. Senate in a moment. She's not running again for re-election. She's got a lot of clout in Washington. She's been in there a long time. She's a senior. She's the senior member of New Hampshire's congressional delegation, former governor, well-respected, well thought of in Washington, and I think to a larger extent here at home. I've had her on my show countless times going back to TV days. She's consistently said in the past that government shutdowns are harmful, bad, and advocates for finding common ground. She says shutting down the government should never be an option. But yet she's voted how many times to not reopen the government now? I'm just pointing out how hypocritical all this stuff is. And I don't know what's going to break this, but I look at the media, and can you imagine George Stephanopoulos or George Step all over us? How much has he cost ABC with that wrongful stuff with Trump? About $20 million. Why? He's still on the air. Georgie's done well. He's getting a lot of money. Former Democrat operative for Clinton and Dick Gephardt. He's done well posing as a journalist. But can you imagine him on Sunday morning with Chuck Schumer? Face the Nation or whatever, the ABC this week. My guest this morning is Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader. Senator, thanks for being with us. Oh, George, great to be with you. Senator, I just want to play a clip from you a couple years ago. So you put the camera on Schumer listening. Shutting down the government over policy differences and demands is irresponsible and terrible. We can never do that. Why is it okay now, Senator? George, I thought you were going to be friendly to me. Thought you were going to be a buddy this morning. You're not supposed to point out that, what I said a couple years ago. I don't even remember saying that. No, they won't do that. And every time they see a story on the vote like today, federal union, 800,000 federal workers want to reopen the government. Just do it cleanly. Stop this policy stuff. Reopen the government. Our TSA agents need to be paid. They're going to vote today. And guess what? Democrats are going to vote against reopening the government. So the news tonight will be the Senate the Senate failed to vote to reopen the government today. Not Democrats refused to vote to reopen the government. They won't do that lead because it doesn't fit the narrative. You know what the narrative, folks, is? Let me just paint the picture for you. The narrative is the midterm elections a year from now. That's the narrative. The narrative is blame Trump and the Republicans for that government shutdown, you might recall. That's the narrative. So if it doesn't fit the narrative, Democrats are voting no to reopen the government. Oh, by the way, where's the local interview of our senators in Washington? Why Do you want to restore funding for public broadcasting to reopen the government? Yes or no? Well, yes, that's one of my demands. I would ask if I was the interviewer, what is restoring funding for public broadcasting got to do with reopening the federal government? Well, though, the Republicans, they cut this, and healthcare and No, that's not what I asked. What is restoring funding for public broadcasting, taxpayer dollars, got to do with reopening the government? Well, it's called journalism. Used to be something when Tim Russert was alive, Cokie Roberts, Sam Donaldson was in there, and others. It used to be there. Not anymore, because it's politics. Why do you think the ratings suck for national TV media? Why do you think they're going down the tube? Because most people have a brain and they recognize political activism versus media coverage. Ask the tough questions of both, and we'll see where it goes. And I don't know what's going to break this. My suspicion is it will be because politicians react to one thing, getting reelected. That's all they're in there down there for. And get reelected, and the metric of a person in Washington, how successful a senator is how many terms have you served, not what have you done. Have you helped veterans? Look at Massachusetts. They spend $1 billion a year in the state of Massachusetts to house, transport, cover insurance, pay for illegal immigrants. $1 billion a year. They spend $3 million a year. I looked this up in Mass last year's budget, this year's budget, 2025, to end veteran homelessness in Mass. But yet, if you live there and you vote for this stuff, you're okay with that, I guess. So I look at politics with the same cynicism you do. It's all about staying in power, getting reelected. Do you ever wonder? I mean, Nancy Pelosi, let's be honest, is a pretty effective politician. House Speaker not once but twice. She's been in there a long time. But she's not the sharpest boat coming down the canal, trust me, nor is her husband. But I don't know how you go in there as House Speaker, and then after the years you've been in there, all of a sudden you're worth $150 million. How does that happen? How does that happen? You're getting paid a couple $100,000 a year, and you're worth $150 million. It's called public service. The problem is they're not serving the public. They're serving themselves. It's all about reelection. This whole government shutdown is about the midterm elections. I said it when it started. It's about the midterm election, getting elected next fall. That's all this government shutdown is over. They can tell you, oh, we don't like the fact that you're going to have to show that you're trying to get a job to continue to get Medicaid or the Obama subsidies or restoring funding for public broadcasting. Those are the legs of the stool they want to reopen the government, the Democrats, including our own delegation. But no one's calling them on the carpet for it. It's all about the midterm elections and getting reelected, because that's all that motivates Washington is reelection. Some commentary, 603-228-2080. Aaron, I got going there. We brought in a great Air Force veteran, someone else who served in the Air Force. I'm glad you have some colleagues out there like yourself. And he's got a great dog business. What's the name? I'll put in a quick plug here. Go ahead. No, you can just talk. Go ahead.
Oh, hey. My name is Artie Flecker. Our business is called Wolfies of Concord, Manchester. And we have a mobile pet spa, and we basically come to your house, your business, your apartment. We do full grooms on dogs, cats, bunnies. We also have pet sitting and dog walking.
Wow. And so if you're traveling your way and your dog need to go out a couple of days, you guys can show up even if I'm at home and let my best buddy out?
Yeah, that's it. We have drop-in services. We can come in 15, 20, 30 minutes, a couple times a day.
Awesome.
Make sure your dog's taken care of.
What's the website?
Wolfies.com.
Wolfies. J-Dog's a part dog. Wolfies. Wolfies.com.
I don't know if the tub's big enough.
He's the dog. Best buddy. Best buddy. All right. Thank you. Good to meet you. Thanks for your service. Coming up, Scott Brown. He's running for the U.S. Senate next.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Yep. Be good.